Hello everybody and welcome back to the Dragon's Library. Today I will be reviewing the book Hellbent by Leigh Bardugo, the second book in her Alex Stern series, which started with a book called The Ninth House that I reviewed last week. The urban fantasy series follows Alex Stern, a girl who can see ghosts as she's pulled into the secrets and magic of the Houses of the Veil, 9 magic societies that reside at Yale University. The author, Leigh Bardugo, is well known for her Grishaverse series. If you've read that, then you definitely know why it's good. Not necessarily because of the original trilogy, but because that also means that she wrote Six of Crows, and that series freaking slaps. It's a little duology, and I would say that Hellbent and The Ninth House are more closely related to that than her Grishaverse series, which is nice. In addition, Leigh Bardugo is just a generally good writer that takes inspiration from a lot of unusual sources. In particular, like I mentioned her Grishaverse series before, it took inspiration from Slavic folklore and traditions, whereas the Houses of the Ninth Veil takes a lot of inspiration from Greek and Roman stuff, but not in the traditional sense of the gods, but in the religious practices and rites. Anyway, moving on, let's go into a summary of Hellbent, because I've given you a brief overview of the series. After the previous year as the newest member of Lethe, Alex finds herself down one mentor. With Darlington trapped in hell, and the Lethe board unwilling to aid her, she and Pamela Dawes must find a gateway to the underworld to rescue him before he becomes a demon. This situation becomes complicated even further by a string of new murders and Alex's old connections holding the murders that got her into this situation to begin with over her head, which means she now has to deal with a drug kingpin as well. So yeah, this series has always been good at mixing mystery, urban fantasy, and magic together into some genuinely interesting tales. While I had my criticisms of The Ninth House, and I still hold them to a certain degree, I will admit it had a very compelling mystery, and while I thought the English teacher was sus, the actual end result of the mystery was something I did not predict at all, and I really did like. One of the things I will say right out about Hellbent is that it builds upon the original story. And this is something that I actually really like about a mystery series when they can effectively do this. So, originally it was the mystery of there's a bunch of murders, Alex eventually connects them to... Oh, wait, before I go any further, spoilers for The Ninth House. This is a sequel, I can't really talk about it without going into spoilers about The Ninth House. There should not be any spoilers about Hellbent until I get to the spoiler talk at the end, so we'll leave it there. We can leave that there. Ugh, can't even talk right. Anyway, the previous book had a bunch of murders that Alex was trying to solve, along with the missing Darlington. However, she also got involved with a ghost who was interested in the death of his fiancée, which ended up tied into a bunch of murders that seemed to align when the magical nexuses that give the houses their power and a lot of their magical oomph got established, which leads Alex to uncovering that their deaths are some sort of ritual that create houses, and the dean figured out about it to try and create his own house using the murder. It didn't work though, because it turns out the first murder victim, the bridegroom's, fiance, was actually like Alex. She could see ghosts, and they're called wheel walkers. They can absorb the souls of the dead to give them strength and can see them. They can also travel between worlds, and they can suck the souls out of the living. Consuming a normal soul gives them a few decades, but consuming another wheel walker gives them like 50 years, so half a century. Every time that she did though, she also created a magical nexus, and those nexi binded her to the town itself. Which is interesting, I like the whole thing. Very good overall story. So, with that said and done, let's move on to the characters. First up, we have Galaxy Alex Stern. She's this downtrodden kid, she's been in and out of a lot of shit in her life, saw ghosts as a kid, has a mother who's not really all there but she still loves regardless, had a grandmother who loved her but died, and she's just kind of been dealt a shit hand her whole life. She hit rock bottom, basically getting high all day, and in a drug deal gone wrong, she lost the love of her life, and basically just had to deal with it. However, after she, lost them all, she was approached by the associates from Lethe, the Ninth House. Unlike the other houses of the Veil, Lethe is essentially the police force. If you haven't read my previous review, go, check that out for more details, but they keep the other houses in check. Next up, we have Darlington, or Daniel Arlington III. He is a descendant of the Arlington family, which was a rich family who was involved in a lot of businesses. His parents were complete assholes and left with his grandfather, who was kind but also very distant and firm and kind of an asshole in his own way and not letting him really choose a future. But his grandfather, especially in this book, we do get to see his ghost a bit, did seem to care about him in his own strange way. Moving on from that, we have Pamela Dawes. She is Oculus, which is one of the titles of the Leigh house. She's sort of like the research student there. She does a lot of the research, keeps track of the catalogs, and is working on a dissertation. Next up, we have Abel Turner, who is a member of the police force in the New Haven Police Department. He essentially acts as their inside man on the police in Lethe and gets paid a decent amount, as well as access to various knowledge that everyone else doesn't. He goes to Lethe specifically. He's essentially their link with the police department, because the reason Lethe was established is because the houses were regularly abusing their power and killing people in their rituals. So he's essentially there to make sure Lethe actually holds the houses somewhat responsible for any murders and make sure that they're not actively murdering everyone. He's very law-abiding. We get to know more about his past, and in general, he's a pretty good guy. Finally, one of the side characters for the next one, but takes on a more active role in the story in this case, is Mercy Zhao. She is one of Alex's normal dorm mates who doesn't really know about the magical world, but gets drawn into it in this one. In the last one, she got a bad encounter with the illusionist house that drugged her up and made her do some stuff that was very, very inappropriate, and tried to hold it over her. Alex got revenge for her, and in this book we get to see her taking a more active role. She's a fun character, very upbeat. She's not really naive, like she's aware, especially after with the recent events, just how dangerous stuff can be, but she is also very curious, especially when she learns about magic, which I kind of like. Alex is a bit worn down to be a sort of audience perspective, whereas Mercy acts as more of, this is how the average person would react to it. Because again, you have to remember, Alex has been seeing ghosts her whole life. Magic being real isn't that big a surprise at that point. Moving on from the characters, because I just really like the characters, what is the big mystery? How does the mystery play out exactly? And I would say it's good. It has good twists and turns. I feel like you could predict, or at least I feel like there's enough hints about the mystery that you could reasonably expect you to figure it out, but it's not so obvious that I feel like everyone will figure it out, if that makes sense. Basically, it has a good balance between a realistic mystery that doesn't have left field surprises or dumb twists, but it's also a well-paced mystery. In fact, I would actually say that Hellbent is probably better paced than the Ninth House. The Ninth House was very oddly paced, and it felt a bit slow in the middle, had these dips and stuff, whereas I feel Hellbent is a much more steady experience. I really liked it all, and I personally think it's just a better book. I think it improves upon basically all the points of the Ninth House. Now, one of the downsides to Hellbent, though, is that we do not get as much time with the various houses of the Vale. In fact, for most of the book, the houses themselves are sort of a background issue. In the first, we got to meet, different people in the houses. We got to go experience their rituals and stuff like that. Whereas that happens mostly off-screen in this book, so to speak. So it's not really a main focus here. Mostly in this one, they're worried about finding the Gauntlet, which is a ritual site that lets you go to hell. And in general, let's just talk about their version of the afterlife. In their afterlife, there's the Vale, which is sort of like the Sea of the Dead, in a sense. And beyond that, there are various different afterlives. It's all kept very vague. This is a very loose magic system. But I do like the attention to detail they do put in. I like the way that, for example, in order to open the gate, it's revealed that everyone who goes through, you need at least 4 people, and all of them have to be murderers. And it's just like, oh, well, I mean, I let a ghost possess me to be like a bunch of drug dealers to death, and you bashed over that asshole who was trying to murder us last semester, so we got 2 out of 4. That's pretty good. Let's check with Turner and see if he's murdered anyone. I love the way that happens. It's great. Now, I like the magic system, obviously, and I will definitely be talking about that a little bit more, swear, in the spoiler section. And I like the characters, I like the setting. But what are the problems? And there are a few. First off, I said the pacing's better. It's not perfect. There are definitely some of those pieces where I feel like the story's just kind of running in circles. And I think that the story as a whole comes together. So while I was like a little off in the moment and I got bored once or twice, I wouldn't necessarily say that was the fault of the story so much as, or necessarily this fault of the pacing so much as the direction the story wanted to go. And I'd say as a whole experience, it's definitely very good experience. I don't want to knock this that much at all, because I did really like the story, and I really like the world and the characters, and its uniqueness. It feels different. It feels like something special. Moving on from all of that, let's get into our conclusion. So, I said I like this, and I do. There aren't really many things I'd change about it. The only thing I could really say is that I would have probably liked if we'd seen more of the houses of the Vale, since they're supposed to be the main thing here, but I understand pushing them to the back in the story about going to hell and rescuing a soul from the underworld. I like the characters. I think they're fun, well realized. I enjoy that side characters are getting more screen time in this, and that's what I'm saying. As the houses of the Vale were pushed aside, they brought like her roommates, Alex's roommates, to the front, which was a good move. You got more time with characters we didn't see as much in, like Marcy. And I really like Marcy as a character. Or Mercy, not Marcy, sorry. Mercy Zhao. And I think she's a good character with a lot of interesting. She adds a new perspective to their group dynamic. And I like the direction the author decided to put her in throughout this story. Not spoiling, I swear. So, with all that said, great setting, interesting magic system, fun characters. There's just a lot to like in this book. I wouldn't say it's perfect. Again, Six of Crows is still my standard when it comes to judging Leigh Bardugo's work. But I will say this is pretty close to that. I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10. Definitely a book you should check out if you have not already. I think Leigh Bardugo needs all the attention she can get. She's a good writer, one of the better writers currently working. And I would just love to see more of her stuff. Okay, so with all that said and done, let's move on to the spoiler sections. Warning, from here on out, there be spoilers for Hellbent. You don't like that? You need to get. Skip ahead to wherever the announcements are to check out what else I'm working on. Okay? Okay. Whew, off script. Okay. I don't really have a full script, more like a set of notes, but I'm kind of off notes now, so if I sound like I'm a little check, that'd be why. So let's start off with this story, and I really, really like this. This is a lot of fun. There's a lot of stuff going on here. But let's start with the interesting magic system first. So the magic system of the Ninth House is heavily based upon rituals and practices. The illusionists use drugs to feed off the worship and disassociation of their subjects. So like they'll hold these massive parties, get everyone freaking high, distort their view of what they know and what they are, and then they'll use that as like fuel for their magical illusions to trick people and distort the world. And it's like, okay. And all the magic houses are actually based on real secret societies at Yale for reference. Now let's just go over them real quick. The Houses of the Vale are as follows. You have Skull and Bones, founded in 1832. It's the oldest one. They specialize in divination using entrails of sacrificed victims, either human or animal. Their influence is gathered by using the predictions for things like stock tips and World Cup results for betting. So they basically run the stock market. Scroll and Key was founded a decade after Skull and Bones. The locksmith specialized in, well, astral projection, ethereal projection, and portal magic. So teleportation and seeing things over long distances. They use it for traveling long distances and breaking into secure buildings, although portal magic is very versatile, and as we saw in the previous one, it even allows people do things like turn intangible. Book and Snake, it was founded in 1863. They specialize in necromancy and divination through bone conjuring. They use information from their network of dead informants, and they use that to spy on various countries and keep people through blackmail and stuff like that. You can't just kill somebody to silence someone with them around. Next up, we got Wolf's Head. They focus on shapeshifting into animals, particularly on retaining human consciousness when transformed. Their specialization lends themselves towards animal espionage and information gathering, similar to Book and Snake. Aurelians, they specialize in logomancy, which is word binding and divination through language. Their magic is commonly used to create unbreakable contract and binding vows, but they also use it to accomplish inspiration spells and hound dog castings. This basically makes it so that they can essentially give people creativity to an extent as well. Their magic only sometimes functions, but they have survived through its portability and practicality. Finally, we have St. Elmo's. Their magic are elemental weather magic, and in its heyday, they manipulate the weather to summon storms or droughts and basically control the world through secret by using like summoning hurricanes in places they wanted to suffer, droughts, and other such things. However, they lost their tomb, and it's currently controlled by the board of Yale, which has prevented them from doing anything but the most basic of their spells. Without a place of power to work, they can't do their big old castings. Then we have Manuscript, and this is the youngest of the 8 houses. They specialize in mirror magic, illusions, and glamours. Their influence can be found in their ability to manipulate perception on a wide range of scales. Finally, we have Barazilles. They were technically the fourth house to be established, but they have no specific teachings or philosophy aside from the idea that the only true magic is science. Essentially, they're like, why do magic when you can have science? They didn't gain as much influence compared to the others, and they don't donate to Lethe for their services because they don't actually practice rituals. In addition, Lethe House does not police Barazilles in turn. And finally, we have the so-called ninth house, Lethe. Lethe does not operate as a society, but as a monitoring body which oversees the various rituals to make sure they're performing things to conduct. Lethe was formed after several grossly ineffective prognostications by Skull and Bones resulted in a large attracting attention because there were a bunch of dead hobos dead. There were a bunch of dead hobos. And the unofficial motto of Lethe is no more dead hobos. So that should tell you a lot about the kind of people we're working with. Lethe House is usually taken in from people outside of the rich and famous. They're usually students that get recruited into there that show talent in the early days. Specifically people who are not actively looking for the occult has to go looking for you. However, Alex Stern, as someone who concealed ghosts, a wheel walker, was an exception. They had encountered people like her in the past, so that she wasn't completely unique, but a lot of them didn't seem to last long, or were very unstable, or just died. So it's very unusual that they managed to get a hold of one who hasn't gone completely off the bonkers insane yet. She got recruited by... She basically got told that she was going to be working under her new Virgil, Daniel Arlington, and also known as Darlington, who saw himself as very much a knight. He got recruited in a similar method by actually finding out about the ritual that allows you to see ghosts. He attempted to do it in order to see his grandfather, and ended up nearly dying in the hospital. However, it got the house's attention, and he was recruited into Lethe like Alex before him. Or like Alex was before he was. After he was, sorry. Ugh, off script, like I said. Anyway. Moving on after the ninth house, where the dean was doing a bunch of murders to try and create a new site of power that he was going to sell to St. Elmo's. They found out the English professor was actually a wheel walker like Alex. She was the dead bridegroom's fiance. She had been sucking the souls out of people in order to stay alive, but had been bound to the town of New Haven. She tried to kill Alex, and Alex managed to kill her in turn, which conveniently her ghost, and by ripping the ghost out of her, which then descended on her body and destroyed it, so she was able to get away from that. However, despite all of this, Darlington got sent to hell by a monster that was summoned by the dean because he had figured out what the dean was up to. That's how this series starts. See, Alex had heard whispers from ghosts talking about the gentleman demon, and Darlington was supposed to be like the gentleman of Lethe, so it was a connection to him. And she figured out he was still alive and in hell. Perhaps he even turned into a demon. They were going to try and rescue him. Since his body had actually been sent there, it was highly possible that he was still somewhat alive and be able to return to the mortal realm. As they try and find him, though, he appears summoned in the house, the estate, basically the Arlington estate, Blackwood, and he is trapped in this magic circle. Is already half demon, has these horns, and seems to be under some magical compulsions to not tell them too much. It's quickly revealed that the new head of Lethe, after a first meeting where he comes off across kind of an asshole, is actually replaced. Spoiler alert. I warned you there would be spoilers. He's replaced by the demon who captured Darlington in hell and started turning him into a demon. So let's get into how demons work. Demons were minorly referenced in the ninth house as you don't fuck with demons. They're bad news. That's way above our pay grade. And in this one, it's revealed how it works. So basically, a long time ago, one of the houses of the Vale, the first three of them, or the first four houses of the Vale, created a gauntlet to go into hell. They were trying to explore. In actuality, though, they were really just looking for more power, despite their good words, because these are rich assholes. Anyhow, they made it out, but only 3 of them survived long term. One of them turned into a rival drug dealer centuries later, because he's been turned into a vampire. Vampire is what happens when a demon who has escaped hell after a specific target, i.e. a human who has gone into hell or gone after them, fully absorbs their soul. And they then gain a new physical form in the real world and are able to feed on the misery, suffering, and blood of others. And just if you were wondering, they do drink blood, they do have fangs, and they are vampires. That's how you create a vampire. You have a demon who fully subsumes another soul. And they seem to be very picky about the souls. They want very particular people for it. What happens in short, is that one of them, they all made a deal with the demon down there, but one of the demons followed them and killed one of their members. He then absorbed him and became a vampire that's been stalking there. Alex has a run-in with the drug dealer who's holding deaths of his brother over her head from that whole incident that got her, attention from Leigh. She goes after him because he's like, look, deal with this one person for me and we're square, which means we're totally not gonna be square. It's always gonna be yet another favor, but whatever. She's holding your mom over her head, so what can Alex do but listen? She goes and finds out that vampires are really freaking dangerous, and you should not fight them alone with nothing but your bare hands and a ghost. So, yeah. Anyhow, as they pursue, they attempt to do a ritual. They find Trip, who is another one from Skull and Key or Trip Windham. He's actually important, so I do need to look him up real quick. 1 second, pausing. Okay, so it's Trip Hellbent, and he's from Skull and Bones. Basically, in order to use the gauntlet, you need 4 people taking on specific roles to walk through it. And those 4 people all have to be murderers. Now, murderer is very literal in this tense. It doesn't mean you actively tried to kill someone. It means your actions caused someone's death. So, for example, Darlington is being turned into a demon. Only murderers can become demons. So people are like, what the hell? It's like, oh, well, my grandfather is being held hostage in his old age by my parents who wanted to leech off him and ruin, and ended up trying to sell the house, and the only way to stop them was to unplug him. He told me to, and I did it for him. But it was still murder, or even though it was consensual, it was still murder. So Darlington is a murderer in the terms of hell. Like I said, Alex killed a bunch of drug dealers while possessed by her girlfriend's ghost. Abel Turner killed a crooked cop. Pamela Dawes killed this other asshole who was using mind control stuff to attack them last semester. And Trip had this real asshole of an older cousin who nearly killed him by drowning him one time. And who was like the perfect little kid who was so nice all the time while snidely whispering under his breath and wanting his younger cousin dead. And one day he fell overboard on a boat, and Trip was the only one who saw him, and he told no one and just watched him drown. Because he was genuinely afraid for his life at that point. Like, Trip is kind of an asshole, but he's not like an asshole, if that makes sense. Like, he's really wealthy and from like this big old family. He basically walked into Yale, but like, he's clearly been through some shit, and when it comes down to it, he was willing to walk into hell with the rest of the characters. I didn't really talk about him much in the review proper, because it's late in the story when you get to see Trip again, and we only saw him a little bit in the first book, but he's actually not a bad guy. Like, yeah, he's a rich, privileged kid, but when it comes down to it, he's willing to do things that most people wouldn't do, you know? I mean, how many rich kids do you know who literally be willing to walk into hell just because it's the right thing to do? Not many, and that seems like kind of a minor thing. It's like, oh yeah, he did the bare minimum. It's like, no, he walked into hell, and that was not a consequence-free action, spoiler alert, but he did it, and I find it hard to get mad at him for that. There's even moments in the book where Alex is like, look, you guys can be pissed at him all you want, you can call him a coward, but like, if he doesn't want to do it again, because they have to go back into hell a second time after the first attempt fails, and they're all willing to call Trip a coward for being missing. It's like, we shouldn't be that quick to call him a coward. He walked in there once, and even if he doesn't want to do it again, that's not necessarily on him. I'm not sure I would want to do it again. I'm only doing it because I literally don't think there's another choice. If he thinks there is another choice, he might not want to do it, and that's fair. This is basically the worst thing we could experience. Like, part of the gauntlet was literally them living through, each of them having to live through the worst moment of their lives when they killed someone. Like, they all collectively lived through each other person's memories again to go through it. And it's like, it's not pleasant. It's a very unpleasant experience. The book makes it clear on that. So, I did feel the need to defend Trip a little bit. He's a very well-written character in that he's, flawed. Like, again, he is kind of a rich asshole. He's kind of an idiot. And a part of you does hate him just for having such an easy life. But at the same time, he did, actually do the right thing when the stakes were down. Plus, that fate was pretty bad. So, I mean, mixed bag. His familiar protected him in the end, I guess. We'll get into that. You'll see that. So basically, they go down to hell, and the demon who was after them tricks them. He had already absorbed most of the soul of the guy who was in charge of their board and had been pretending to be him. He interrupts the ritual by accident when Mercy's up there, and he's the reason they have to flee. However, they end up bringing the guard dog demons that were guarding Darlington's soul up with them, and then they have to make another trip down there to not only save Darlington, but also to get rid of the dogs who are after them. Darlington ends up using his demon side that he had upstairs to break out and defend Alex when she figures it all out, and they have to make another descent. So, she has to go pull Darlington out, and she ends up doing it by literally going down there herself, because apparently she's a wheel walker. She can just walk into hell. All worlds are open to her, as was said in the last book. So she goes down there, frees Darlington. Darlington beats the shit out of the demon in his pseudo-physical body, but he's going to be back. The other demons are still stalking them, trying to, devour their souls so they can become vampires. They have salt spirits to protect them. Alex has a bunch of snakes. I am an ophiophobe, so I'm not going to say more on that because they give me freaking nightmares just hearing about that, but I have to get over it because snakes are a common motif in fiction. They're a common motif in human culture, to be honest. But that's a topic for an entirely other day. Anyway, moving on from there, we go into hell again, and they have a final confrontation, and then we get the big, overarching, consolidating twist. And this is the thing that really brings the story together. And I want to talk about this, because this, kids, is an example of how to tie mystery plots together without making it seem contrived. So, to go back a bit, in the first book, it's revealed that the English teacher was secretly this centuries-old wheel walker who died, possessed somebody else, and started stealing and devouring living souls in order to sustain herself. The first few souls she ate were normal people's souls that lasted her about 10 years before she started to feel weak. However, after a while, another wheel walker came into New Haven, and she found her and devoured her soul, finding that it sustained her for 50 years, which is 5 times more so than the others. As the time passed, she realized that wheel walkers seemed drawn to New Haven, as if the universe was delivering them to her. And she wasn't entirely wrong. See, all those years ago, back when the first tombs were created, and, the early members of the societies made the gauntlet to go into hell to search for knowledge and power. The demon came to them. The demon we fight in this book came to them and offered them a deal. It would grant them wealth and power beyond their wildest dreams. However, they had to leave the gauntlet in place and open, and they had to make sure to smear it with blood. And what it did, essentially, the demon's blood acted like a sort of subconscious lure to wheel walkers. Basically, wheel walkers would find themselves drawn to New Havens, and once a wheel walker walked into hell, they could essentially use them to prop the door open permanently, unleashing demons into the world without them having to follow someone else out. But basically, the way it works is, while a wheel walker's in hell, the door remains open. So, any other old demon could just pop out. And that's what they were trying to do. However, they didn't realize that there was a wheel walker out there eating the wheel walkers as they came in there. The bridegroom's, the bridegroom, oh god, what was her name? Marguerite Belbaum was her name. She used to be Daisy Fanning Whitlock. And Daisy had still been around, eating any wheel walker that came into New Haven. And so the demon had been really confused as to how no freaking wheel walkers had walked into his perfectly alive trap. So despite the fact that Daisy was, yes, a self-centered murderer who was using the souls of young girls to sustain her immortality forever, she was also technically acting as a natural stopgap, preventing the demons from taking over the world. Which is why things have only started to go to shit around the time that Galaxy came in and managed to beat her. Which I like. I think it's a cool way to build on the world. Daisy didn't know what the hell she was doing. She was a wheel walker with basically no experience, very few ties to societies, who basically just walked in and found a way to keep herself young forever and just did it. She didn't really care enough to figure out why wheel walkers kept coming into town. She just accepted it as her due to the universe because she was very self-centered and kind of a brat. But the demons had been waiting for someone to deal with her for years. Anyway, after everything, the demon, as they're escaping hell, they manage to pull Darlington out, using Darlington ends up being the last one because Trip went missing, and they all think he's either been killed by the vampires or he's hiding like a coward. They lure the other demons into hell, trap them there, and then they try and escape. And, you know, they have this big battle, and it's really cool, and this, I am no longer your scared little girl thing, and I'm going to beat you, demon. Alex gets this awesome wheel walker moment with blue fire and salt snakes, and it's all really cool. However, as she's escaping, the demon ends up biting her in the arm, which is a little neat. And before, actually, I should probably go back a little bit. See, the whole thing is the demon tells them that the hell will not let them leave with a soul without a murderer. As long as there's a murderer, the door will be weak enough for him to send his minions out after them. So she ends up luring the drug dealer that's blackmailing her into the ritual, grabs him and pulls his soul in when he tries to threaten Mercy, and lets them take him instead. And the demon's all like, how dare you? How dare you? We're supposed to win. So he grabs and bites into Alex's arm, drawing a little bit of blood on the ground. And the blood in there isn't enough to keep the door open. Like, it's not enough to unleash a tide of demons into the world. But it's enough to prop the door open, just a tad. Enough for like 1 or 2 demons to slip out every once in a while. And so that's what's revealed at the end, is that he managed to get a little bit of Alex into the portal, and the portal to hell is now going to be slightly open. Because a demon appears and is watching them from the shadows, and they notice it, and they're like, alright, we got a salt sword, I'm a wheel walker, Darlington's now like half demon, let's go demon hunting, baby. And I'm just like, oh yes, I cannot wait for supernatural murder mystery demon hunting. That sounds like awesome, like seriously. I cannot emphasize this enough. I want book 3 now. I want to see Alex and Darlington going on like a buddy cop demon slaying adventure. That just seems awesome. Alex is now into herself as a wheel walker. She's aware of her powers, very confident with them. Darlington has the amazing personality and like the demon strength and the horns and everything. And they're just like this awesome little duo that I want to see go do some stuff. Mercy has to figure some stuff out. By the way, Trip, he did get absorbed by the demon. He did get attacked and drained dry. His physical body died. However, they all got a salt familiar because salt can repel demons. And his bird, turns out, wasn't able to protect Trip, but it was able to shelter his soul. And so when the demon ate him and it turned into a vampire, its soul got destroyed and Trip's soul took its place. So now he's a vampire, but he's still aware of himself as a human being. They did, a bunch of tests where he was able to call the bird and everything like that. It's like, all right, still bound to his soul. This is still Trip, but he's also a vampire now. And like, it's really, I love the way they did it because Trip is just like in his room. He's like, I haven't been able to leave. I'm really hungry and I get sick whenever I eat. And well, you want to eat us, don't you? It's like, I don't, like, yes, kind of, but I wouldn't eat you guys. I know that's wrong. It's just like, it's like, maybe we can give him some rats to feed. It's like, I'm not going to eat a rat. I'm going to love this. Like, Pamela Dawes as the Oculus, Trip as the reluctant vampire, you got Darlington the half-demon gentleman, and Alex Stern the wheel-walking, salt sword-wielding demon slayer. Oh my god, this is awesome. Abel Turd is now on board as kind of like their cop in the know. And this, I want this series to keep going. I really hope there's going to be a book 3 here. I know there probably is because they're not going to leave this unresolved. But like, it's just so much fun. I've never had a series grip me like this midway through. I usually know by the first book if I'm really into a series or just kind of into it. But I gotta admit, I had to get through second book before I was like really into it. Like, I'm on board. That ending, I have rarely had an ending make me so excited for a book I was just kind of met on when I started. Thank you, Leigh Bardugo. So yeah, that's my kind of unstructured thoughts on this book. I hope you enjoyed this spoiler section. I haven't done one of these in forever. I've forgotten how fun it is to just completely go off all my scripts and notes and be like, let's just talk about this. So yeah. With all that said and done, let's move on to the announcements. So, I have just finished up my playthrough of Forspoken. I streamed it on Twitch and YouTube. There were minor technical issues, but I've mostly gotten that done. So that review will be coming out soon. Forspoken is a video game, and I actually have some different thoughts than what I think other people are talking about this game. I kind of liked it a bit, but you'll see that more of that in the review proper. Coming up soon for streaming, I'm going to be playing Hogwarts Legacy when it comes out. I'm probably going to be taking a break and not streaming this Thursday, so look for me next Tuesday and Thursday to start with Hogwarts Legacy. When talking about other books and movies and shows, I will be reviewing The Last of Us sometime in the future, and I believe that this weekend, the last episodes of The Legend of Vox Machina Season 2 will be coming out, so I'm going to be giving that a good review. I think either Saturday, Sunday, or Monday, depending on when I get it all done. I apologize if that comes out late, but I am just kind of piling on right now. In addition, next week, I should hopefully have a review out for Forspoken. So we're going to have a book, show, and a game. And then I can maybe do a movie and have like all 4 of those be in a row and just be like, oh, the different forms of media. So yeah, that's what you have to look forward to in the future. I hope you guys are excited because I am. There's a lot of fun stuff coming out right now. We got Ant-Man and the Wasp about to come out. It's going to be a wild ride. I've already started on my book, The God Killer. I'm not going to talk about how it's going yet, but I'm mostly hopeful. I'm still hopeful. I'm still very, very hopeful about it. We'll have to see. I'd like for something weird to catch my eye, so I like it. Yeah. Now, moving on to the, final credits. There's a subscribe orb. Come here and subscribe at the subscribe orb. In addition, we have a playlist of this year's stuff. Check that out. And also a video YouTube thinks you might like. Maybe you'll like more of my stuff. I do a lot of other reviews here. So if you're interested in any of that, check it out. See you guys next time. Bye.